Hey, can you hear me, everyone? Awesome. So I'm Alexandra Damsker, and I'm a lawyer, securities lawyer. I used to work at the SEC at a big firm, and I also ran a couple of companies and exited, and I've been in blockchain since 2016. And the first event I spoke at had a packed audience of 200 people, and now there's like 20,000 people at events. So I've been in it that long, which isn't actually as long as it's existed, but it's long for blockchain. And I advise a bunch of companies, I advise an exchange and some funds, and that's what I do. So I'm going to talk to you today about blockchain as a whole, and then we're going to talk about some different areas of blockchain. And one of the big problems that we have is a lot of people in this space have what I call Swiss cheese knowledge. They have like little tiny bits of information about something like you may have heard like an NFT or Bitcoin or DeFi, but they don't really understand how it all fits together, what blockchain really is. It's just a technology. And then once you understand more about that technology itself and how it works, then you'll understand these individual parts. I'll put them together and you'll see how the whole thing works together. And then you guys will be ahead of like 90% of the industry. So yay, that'll be awesome. Okay, how do I advance the slides? Just using the cursor here? Okay, groovy. Okay.
You can also just hit. There it goes.
Right on. Okay, so what's blockchain? Think of blockchain like a toll road, right? So it's like a freeway, right? It's got it goes from one place to another, and basically the desirability of that road is either where it's going from and to, like a cool place like Miami to another cool place like New York. Or if it's boring places like, no offense to anybody from here, but like Lincoln, Nebraska to like Peoria, Illinois, there's like not much stuff there, then it's all the cool stuff on there, right? So either it goes someplace cool and like there's cool places on either end. A lot of people want to be on that road. Or it's because nobody would go to those destinations, but it's got like a casino on it, and it's got a movie theater and the best spa and a hotel and all sorts of really cool things. So think of it like a highway. And then, why are you not flipping? There we go. So, but it's got a toll, right? It's got somebody at the front that you have to pay a toll. So if you think about this, so who's the person getting the tolls? If it's a proof of work chain, and I'm going to explain this in a minute. If it's a proof of work chain, the person collecting the toll is called a miner. If it's a proof of stake or any other chain, that person's called a validator. But that's the person collecting the money, and they're the people working on maintaining that chain. They're all the developers who are like, I work on Ethereum or whatever, or I work on the Bitcoin blockchain. That's who they are, right? They're the people who are maintaining the chain, giving it code, updating it, making sure it continues to work, running nodes, right? Nodes are the computers, right? There's basically just a computer system that contain the whole blockchain in each node. It's a full chain in each node, right? It's fully replicated. What are you paying the toll in? Crypto. That's the use of crypto. Crypto is whatever token that chain takes. It could be Bitcoin, it could be Ethereum, it could be Lisk, it could be any of these actually. But any token that it takes, that's what you're paying as a toll in order to use that road, in order to use that blockchain. So if I want to use Ethereum, either because I want to use an application on Ethereum or because I want to put something on the Ethereum blockchain, if I want any transaction done on Ethereum, I have to pay gas. And my gas is paid in the native token of that blockchain, which is Ether, right? So if I want to do anything on the Bitcoin blockchain, I pay in Bitcoin. If I want to do anything on the Solana blockchain, I pay in Sol. That's why we have these different coins. The coins are the toll that is taken when you want to do a transaction on the blockchain. Why do we even have a toll? Why would you have a toll? If you didn't have a toll, you would have a bunch of spam. You have to have a non-zero fee for people to do anything because people suck and they will do stuff all the time, right? They will spam you. They will put a bunch of garbage on a chain unless it costs them to do that. They'll put garbage, just like they spam your email, they'll spam the chain unless it costs them every single time they do a transaction. That's why. The other reason, it incentivizes all those miners, the gatekeepers. Why would they work? They get paid. That's how they get paid. They collect the fee and they get paid. That is why they continue to work on the chain. They're maintaining their gatekeeping status and making sure that the blockchain stays intact because they're getting paid to do so. So it has two main purposes. That's why we have these tokens. Okay, why is blockchain important? This is fundamentally what blockchain is. It is not about money, right? Not by itself about money. Blockchain is third-party record keeping. It's what we call momentum accounting, right? It's third-party accounting. It's just another level of record keeping. Why would this even matter? All right, so I have an example here. All right, so Ann says I have a goat and I need some wheat. Uh-oh, goats are awesome in the spring, but wheat comes in the fall. That sucks. Well, what's she gonna do? Keep the goat, let it get old in the fall? I don't know what happens to a goat in the fall. Honestly, I'm not a farmer, I don't know. But, okay, the goat has to be sold in the spring and you get the wheat in the fall. So Ann meets Joe at the market and says, I've got this goat, but I need some wheat. And Joe says, great, I have wheat. At least I will have wheat in the fall, and I need that goat. And Ann says, great, I'm gonna give you this goat, you owe me wheat. And Joe says, sure, I'm gonna owe you wheat, I'm gonna take your goat now. What could possibly go wrong? Does anybody know what could possibly go wrong? What could possibly go wrong?
Joe could lie.
Joe could lie! What else could go wrong? Anyone? Go ahead. The wheat doesn't grow. What else? What could happen? If the wheat doesn't grow, then what? Joe what? Well, no, if the wheat doesn't, Joe can't survive. You guys are...
Joe could die.
Joe could die. I don't care so much about Joe. Ann's out a goat, man. Ann's got one goat and she's got no wheat. That would suck. So let's look at some scenarios here. Look, Joe could forget. It's the fall. He's like, and who? I don't know. I meet a lot of chicks out here. I don't know. Like, did I meet you on like goat Tinder? I have no idea. Joe could lie. Joe could be like, I never met you. I don't have any goat. And meanwhile, the goat is like, meh, whatever in the background. We have no idea. Ann could give the promise. So maybe Ann was smart. And Ann got Joe to write down, I owe you one bale of wheat. And then maybe she needs medicine, right? She's got a kid. The kid's sick. Needs medicine, right? So then Ann gives the promise of this bale of wheat in exchange for medicine. Oh, thank you for the medicine. And she gets the medicine, and this third person who legitimately has right to this wheat says, okay, Joe, I have right to this wheat. And this is Bob the medicine seller. Bob says, I gave medicine to Ann, and now I get to collect the wheat. And Joe's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I have zero clue about this. Who are you, Bob? I don't know anything about you. Go away. I'm keeping the wheat and the goat. So Bob could steal Ann's promise of wheat. Bob could just be some guy walking by, see the little piece of paper in Ann's pocket, and just be like, flip, ooh, now I have the right to one bale of wheat. Right on. Ann could say, it was 2 bales of wheat. You promised me 2 bales of wheat. And Joe could say, I don't remember what happened. There's all these things that could go wrong in this transaction, right? And basically it's because people suck, right? People aren't honest. They suck. So why is blockchain important? Blockchain is an independent third party that says that transaction happened. That happened. It's just an independent third party that says this person and this person agreed, close the transaction. If the transaction doesn't close, both people keep their assets. If the transaction closes, it means both parties exchanged whatever asset they promised. The fact that it closed means that the promises or assets were exchanged. That transaction happened. They are not lying. Whoever said that, if Ann says, I gave you a goat and it's on the blockchain, the blockchain says, she gave you a goat, man. She gave you a goat. I see it right here on the blockchain. If Joe says, I already gave you that bale of wheat, we look on the chain, it's not there. No, you didn't. Never happened. It shows proof that something happened. So it removes the threat of fraud. That is a huge thing. Now remember that blockchain came out of the 2008 bank scandals, right? If you guys remember the bank bailouts, you guys were what, 5, 4, 2, 1? You guys were babies. You guys were like, wah, oh, the bank scandals, wah, change my diaper, mommy. The bank scandals make me sad. So what happened was a bunch of banks were screwing around with people's money. This happens now like roughly every 10 years. And we basically spent several $1 billion to bail out a bunch of banks. And then the banks decided not to finance stuff anymore. I'm not going to editorialize more than that. But out of that came this idea, what if we have a system of money offering, like peer-to-peer finance, that doesn't include banks? The whole purpose of this is to say transactions happened without having a bank controlling your money. Because what happened is the banks were lying about transactions. I don't know if you guys have heard about any of these, like Wells Fargo or anything like that, but they were lying about loans. They were lying about how much people had or owed. There was all sorts of stuff that was going on. And this way, it removes the threat of someone having your money and lying about a transaction that did or did not happen. On blockchain, you have private parties, but public transactions, which means you can see the transactions, you just can't see who they are. All transactions are just tied to a wallet identifier. And we're going to talk about wallets. But that's all you see is some alphanumeric thing. Like wallet number A49GC1333. That's it. You don't know whose wallet that is. So private parties, public transactions. So you can see that the Bitcoin went from person A to person B to person C, but you have no idea who person A, B, or C are, which is both good and bad, right? Sometimes if person A, person B, or person C are money laundering, for example, or doing something illegal with that, you want to know who person A, B, or C are. And no banks are required. Okay, so how does blockchain work? I'm just going to walk through a transaction so you can see. Why does it keep doing that? Okay, so Alice sells her well-loved sofa to Bob for half a Bitcoin. A Bitcoin now is like $37,000. So that's a very expensive used sofa. Okay, so they decide to put this transaction on the blockchain. The transaction shows up in the miner's logs, right? Alice says, here, a token representing my sofa is going to go from my wallet, Alice's wallet, and I want it to go to Bob's wallet. And then a token from Bob's wallet is going to go to my wallet. It's going to go 0.5 Bitcoin are going to go from Bob's wallet to Alice's wallet, right? So the miners are going to see that transaction log. Okay. They then check for validity. Does this look like a real transaction? How do they check for validity? They can check very easily on most chains to see whether or not it's a real or fake transaction, because a real transaction has the whole chain behind it. A fake transaction is a stub. That's the whole thing about having a blockchain, right? The whole chain is on every computer. Every computer that's attached to the blockchain literally has an exact replica of the entire chain. That means if you take one node out, one computer out, the entire blockchain still remains undamaged, right? There's just multiple copies of the same thing. That means if one computer tries to sneak in a fraudulent transaction, it shows up because it doesn't have the rest of the chain attached to it. And I'm going to show you how the rest of the chain gets attached. The fraudulent transactions show up as individual transactions. They show up as little stubs, and instead of having the rest of the hash transactions attached to them. Okay. So from there, here's what happens on a proof of work chain. We do a competition because they want to get paid, right? So what they do is they race to hash or process the block, right? So they're going to try and close a block of transactions, and they don't have to do anything. Their computers automatically do this. Marty, Marvin, and Melinda at this point are super rich. They basically run mining pools of very expensive equipment. Originally, it was basically just a laptop, but now you basically need like some pretty high-end equipment for most of these chains because there's a lot of processing power involved. But this automatically happens. You upload an algorithm and your computer automatically does it as soon as a block is available to close. So they race to close the block. And then the person who wins gets the prize, which is a certain amount of Bitcoin or a certain amount of coin as soon as the block is closed, right? So what they're doing, what their computers are doing, is racing to find something called a nonce, which is a random number. Basically, there's what they have to do is find some random computer-generated number. The computer has to figure out between 1 and it's like a million, right? They have to guess the number, and so they basically go through a series of numbers, and whoever picks that number first, like, guess what number I'm thinking? That's literally what a nonce is. The computers are playing guess what number I'm thinking of. Someone finds that number first. And that, the person who finds that number first wins. And what do they win? They win a certain amount of whatever the native token is. So for Bitcoin, which is still a proof of work chain, the halving is coming, and so soon you're going to get 6.25 Bitcoin. But look, you get 12.5 Bitcoin. Bitcoin is $37,000 a Bitcoin. That's why people do this. When people started doing this, so it used to be 25 Bitcoin to close each block, 25 Bitcoin. And originally it was like $5, $1 a Bitcoin. And then it was $700, and then it was $1,400. And for a while, it went up to $60,000. So when you see why people were buying all of your, anybody is a gamer, if you buy like PS4s, for a while you couldn't get any of those because you could mine on those. People were mining Bitcoin. What were they doing? Racing to solve this game. That's what they were doing. They were setting up the algorithm, which is called SHA-256. You upload it, and they were racing to do this. Why? Because you win one time, and it's a nice deal. So that's what they were doing. And all of that keeps the blockchain secure. Okay, what's in a block? The block has something called the header, which is from the previous block. The previous block brings the header over. It's the end of the last block is now the header of the new block. And then it has a series of transactions hashed into something called a Merkle root, and then you add a nonce. So what this looks like, here's what a Merkle tree is. Have you guys ever seen one of these? Okay, the NCAA championship, one of these things, like a basketball, that's a Merkle tree, right? That's what a Merkle tree is. So, but if we say instead of basketball teams, if we call all these things on the side transactions that are basically mixed together in pairs, and then those pairs are mixed together in pairs, and then those pairs are mixed together, that's what happens. This is exactly what happens in a Merkle tree. And then you end up with something right in the middle called a Merkle root. At the bottom is just this one final thing. All that stuff gets mixed together. Does anybody have a guess of what all that mixing together is doing?
Adding up the coins.
No. What are we doing with all of that mixing together?
Encrypting.
Very good. That's exactly what we're doing here. That is a form of encryption. That is making sure that it's really hard for people to accidentally or on purpose substitute out someone else's transaction for their transaction, so that they can't go in and say, wait a second, that person owes me 15 Bitcoin, not half a Bitcoin, right? They can't do that because look, it all gets mixed together. It's really hard to break into an old transaction. It's actually not been done. Break-ins happen a completely different way. Okay, so this is basically what a block looks like. So a block is basically the header of the previous block, plus the Merkle tree root, plus your nonce, your random generated, what's my number? I'm guessing a number, and that's what your block is. Okay, so here, this is proof of work, which is racing this game where they're churning through this algorithm. All the nodes check the work, make sure it looks legitimate. This happens automatically. And then you move on to the next block. This happens over and over and over. This is happening automatically. If you do something that's proof of stake or any other kind of chain, what this means is that the chain itself is not actually tied together by work. It's not tied by computer work. The way that the chain closes a block is by voting. Now, what's the benefit of voting over churning through an algorithm, over a computer doing work? Anybody have an idea of what is the benefit of people voting on something? There's two big benefits. Anyone have a guess? Yeah?
Faster?
What?
Is it faster?
It is. It's faster, and it's faster and easier, which means it's less work. This is the big environmental thing, right? Where if you hear that there's an environmental impact, that's proof of work. proof of stake or any other type, this is the voting thing that doesn't make your computer go through an algorithm that's churning through stuff saying, what's the number, guess the number. It's not doing that. What's the second one? Can you see from here what the second one is? Other people can get money, can get paid if you have a proof of stake or other chain. So validators are people who run nodes. You must have one of these very expensive computers that can hash through things, right? You must have an expensive computer to be a validator. You must also have a big chunk of expensive coins in order to be a validator. But if you have any coins of any of the chains that are proof of stake or other ones that like in the proof of stake system, not proof of work, if any of them allow staking, you basically get to push your coins in with a validator. You get to add your coins into a validator. And then when that validator says, yeah, these look legitimate, because that's what they're voting on, the validators say, does this look real or not? They look at it, they say, does this look like a stumpy thing or does it look like a whole blockchain? Oh, it looks like a legitimate transaction. Yes, and all the validators all say yes, then it's a legitimate transaction. All the validators get paid. If you stake along with it as a little tiny holder who doesn't have the expensive system, you get paid too. So that is one of the benefits. People love this because it's faster, it's cheaper, it doesn't have environmental impact, and people who are just holders can get paid. Okay, what is blockchain actually useful for? Nothing. No, it's not. It's not nothing. It's not nothing. Okay. Only three things. The first is identity. This is basically, so if you have if you want to know who someone is, right? Like their government identity, and it's okay for some people to know it, but not everybody needs to know it, right? You can have the blockchain know your identity independently, but no parties to transactions know it. So identity is actually very useful. Let's say you want to access something you can only access if you're over 18. But you don't want anyone from the sites that you're accessing to know who you are or when you were born. That's how you prove that you're over 18, right? You don't want to tell them that information, but you still have to prove you're over 18. So what do? You use a blockchain protocol that establishes that you're over 18, get a token that says over 18, and then all you have to use is your over 18 token to access your over 18 site, right? So no one actually knows who you are, but they know that you qualify, right? If you want to be a particular kind of investor called accredited investor, no one has to know your income. They just have to know that you're accredited. So these are ways for you to be able to qualify for things or have an identity or say, vote for something where you can prove your credentials, but nobody has to know what those credentials are. They just have to know that they have been proven and qualified. So that's one thing. The next thing is finance. This is essentially your money making money, but without banks. Anytime you have an asset, you can finance something without a bank. So this is going to get rid of all predatory lending, and this is a big, giant topic, and I want to get through some other stuff first, but this area is called DeFi, decentralized finance. I do a lot of work in it, and it's a huge new area. The last thing is ownership. If you guys have heard about NFTs or things like that, being able to transfer rights and track who is the owner of rights, that is a great use for blockchain. Everything else, use a different technology. This is too slow, it's expensive, it's bulky, don't use blockchain. For these three things, use blockchain. All right, are there any questions? This is so clear, right? This woman here is fascinated. She just can't get enough. She's got a future in it. You're going to work in this, right? Okay, what is Bitcoin?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can the transaction, when you're buying a coin, does it need blockchain too?
Yeah, the coins live on blockchain. The coins actually live. Did I do that? Okay. The coins actually live on blockchain. So, and they never leave it. So I'm going to tell you in a minute about wallets, and you'll see how that works. But yeah, so when you're buying a coin on blockchain, what you're doing is tagging that asset to your wallet. So yes, you need a blockchain for it.
But there's no trade with the dollar.
What do you mean there's no trade with the dollar?
You're not trading coins.
Okay, what you're talking about is an on-ramp, right? So when I have, if I want to buy a cryptocurrency, for example, I need an on-ramp. I need a way to trade my fiat, my government-generated, dollar, like money. Government money is fiat, the dollar, right? So I need to trade my dollars for some form of cryptocurrency. And those are exchanges that do that, right? You need an on-ramp to exchange one for the other. But the dollar doesn't live on blockchain. But as soon as what you do is you take the dollar and you're given an equal amount at that moment of coins that are on the blockchain. And then when you trade those coins for other assets, like either other coins or other like an NFT or something else, those are also on a blockchain. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question about the supply of Bitcoin. I think there was this case a while back where this guy had a bunch of Bitcoin on a hard drive and then he lost it. Wouldn't that affect the rest of the Bitcoin in the market on whatever Bitcoin's on?
On the Bitcoin blockchain?
Blockchain, right?
Yeah. Did you read about that guy who had it he was going to pay people to dig through the Michigan dump? Was that the guy?
It might have been him.
Yeah, so there was a guy who had a hard drive. There are two very funny stories about this. There's a guy who had a hard drive that he forgot that he had a bunch of Bitcoin on it, and he threw it away. And then he realized, oh crap, that's Bitcoin and it has actual value. And so he was looking through the dump in the section that I guess his house was. And then he was paying people. He said he'd give people $1 million. He was something like $21 million that he had on there. And so he said, I'll give you $1 million if you dig through, help me dig through and find my hard drive. I don't think they found it. There's another super funny story about, it's only funny because it's not me, but there was a guy who had all of his assets. He knew he was getting a divorce, so he sold all of his assets, as many as he could, for crypto, and he had it on a hard drive on what's called a cold storage wallet, like a ledger. And it looks like a long thumb drive. That's what a ledger looks like one of these hard drive wallets. So he put everything on this drive, and you have to have a security. You have a series of words that are your security key for this. And so he inscribed it on metal, and then he hid it away. And so he didn't want his wife to have any of the assets. And when they divorced, she cleaned out the whole apartment, including that metal that had his password on it. So he could not access any of his money. All of his money gone. That's just a dead wallet now. And so this is the thing. If you can't access your wallet, that Bitcoin is still officially on the chain.
Oh.
It's just not accessible, right? It's on the chain unless and until it's sent to something called a burn wallet, which is an unhosted wallet that nobody holds the key to. So essentially, if you send any coins to a burn wallet, then the coins basically they're not gone, but they're inaccessible to everybody. So they're officially considered gone from that chain. They're removed from supply. But all of these, where it's like the wallet that's in the trash or whatever, they're still on the chain. They're still part of the supply. No one will spend them though. So that's what happens, right? So they're still officially part of the supply.
I was just gonna ask if, like, when that transaction happens of like dollars to Bitcoin, like, what's the benefit of, like, because the benefits you listed, there's some people that just trade like Bitcoin and other coins just for the sake of making money, but doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose of why it's used? Because if they want to get Bitcoin, they're just basically like, why would the person that's selling the Bitcoin even accept dollars? Like, why would they do that?
What's the benefit of Bitcoin? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, like, why would, like, if I want to buy Bitcoin now, and whoever's like, I'll give like $35,000, right? They're taking that money, so they clearly also want dollars. Like, why would you prefer Bitcoin over dollars or dollars over Bitcoin?
This is a very good question. This is a very fundamental concept in economics. This is the difference between assets and currency, and you should always know the difference, right? You should always know the difference. Assets are volatile, which means their value can go up and down. Currency, the whole job of currency is for it to remain constant, right? So the job of the Fed, one of the main jobs, it has two, which is stupid, but its main job is to keep the value of the dollar within a very specific range. Does anybody know that range? What are we shooting for to reduce inflation to what?
3%.
2%. So that means that we want the value of the dollar to be between $1.02 and 98 cents. That's constant, right? When you're talking versus something like, Argentina, which has 110% inflation, right? So when we're talking about maintaining the value of something, we're talking about making something very constant. When we're talking about an asset goes up and down in value. Who can think of an asset? What's an asset?
Like a stock.
A stock is a great asset. What's another asset? A bond is an asset, but a different type. What's another asset?
Real estate.
Real estate's an asset? That's right. Any other assets?
Would like an NFT be an asset?
It could be, depending on the type, it could be an asset. Art can be an asset, something that's a collectible, that art can be an asset. Like anything that you own, right, that can be volatile in price. What?
Like a really rare Pokemon card.
It could be an asset. Not one that I would necessarily purchase, but it could be considered an asset. Baseball cards could be an asset. Assets are things that can vary in value. And why is that important? Because you buy something for a very low value, and then it increases in value, right? So the little bit that you paid for it is now worth a lot. Why would you ever trade dollars for assets? Because, why?
Because they can go up.
Yes! Because that's how you make money.
Oh yeah.
You want to trade dollars for assets because that's how you make money. Money good. I'm sorry, I'm very avaricious, sorry. But it's good to make money. So they've got some other deal going on right there. They're going to buy real estate or something over there. So good question. Who knows what cars are? Liabilities. They are a core asset, but they're a declining asset or a depreciating asset, which basically means a sucky asset. They're an asset with debt on top of it usually, and they decrease in value as they roll off the lot. Finance is super important to understand for blockchain. Technology, finance, economics, and how people move in groups. All very important for blockchain. Go ahead.
So throughout the life of an automobile, like, can it change from an asset, like from a liability to an asset when it becomes like a form of art? Like I know like a lot of people out there would consider some very nice cars as like an art form.
Possible. There is a subset that's a collectible section where, there are, who was it? There's someone who always purchased, someone famous, and I can't, not Warren Buffett, but someone of that caliber who always purchased 2 cars throughout his life. And that was so that he always had one that was mint condition, and all of those became collectible assets. And he understood cars, right? So he ended up with this basically museum worth of collectible assets, and I cannot remember who it is because I don't know cars. But yes, they can be, but it's a very rare subset. For most of them, you're driving them and they're declining in value. What's another asset that people think is an asset, but is actually not really the asset you think it is? House. Because the biggest asset for most people, the best part of it is the debt you carry on it. That's what's tax deductible. You have to have debt on it in order for it to be valuable. Isn't that interesting? Anyway, okay, we can get off of, go ahead. I know, a little side note of economics on this, but it's very interesting. I love this stuff. It's so important to understand a lot of finance in order to understand, like anything in my opinion, but go ahead.
So I don't get how crypto is mined from these computers. Like when a transaction of like trading one Bitcoin or like a Bitcoin and like Ethereum, how do they take crypto from that transaction?
So some of them are mined and some are pre-mined. Okay, so the mined ones, essentially, when someone wins, the computer generates it. These are all digital currencies, which means they don't live outside of a computer, right? So all the images that we have of physical coins are not real. They're basically like what's in the ATM, like what's in your account when you see it on the ATM before you take out physical money. That's all digital. So for the people who aren't aware, everything in a bank right now is digital, right? It's kept digitally. So all of this is kept digitally. It's just created once that block is closed. The amount created digitally from the chain is the exact amount that the award is, and it's placed in the wallet. It's just generated. Pre-mined ones are generated in a specific amount. And then those are the ones that are used on proof of stake chains. All other chains tend to use pre-mined tokens, and that is one of the reasons why they're considered more environmentally friendly, because they don't go through this the churning, all the computer power that it takes to process and then generate these tokens on every single block. They just generate a bunch at inception, and then all of those become issued, like they're basically in treasury, and then they become issued once, as awards or as however the tokenomics dictate. So however the founding company determines those should be allocated, that's how they're distributed. Does that make sense? Is that clear? Okay. So for Bitcoin, it's an asset. So a lot of people think that this is supposed to be the money of the world. It's not, right? It can't be, because it's limited in number. How much is it limited to? Does anybody know? 21 million ever. 21 million ever. That's all that's ever going to be minted. And the problem with that is there's way more than 21 million people. One of the biggest issues, in order to make sure that something keeps a constant value, you have to be able to do something to manipulate supply. If you can't manipulate supply, it is very, very difficult to maintain a constant value. But there's nothing on this that allows you to add supply if it is becoming too expensive, or reduce supply if it's becoming too cheap, right? Which is what we do. We buy dollars when there's too many dollars, when it's inflationary, and we sell dollars when dollars are becoming too expensive, when we want to put more dollars into the economy. We manipulate supply. You can't do it with this, right? One of the main reasons it's an asset. You can always tell when you have an asset versus a currency, because let's say, for example, I decided to use Apple stock to buy an Apple computer, okay? If I were using cash to buy an Apple computer, I would have questions like, you know, is this computer right for me? Does it have all the specs I need? Is this a good cost, right? And then Apple would be like, do you have enough money for it? Those would be our transactional concerns. Now, let's say I used Apple stock to buy it. I would have the same concerns. Is this the right computer for me? You know, does it have the right specs? But what are other concerns I might have? Yeah?
Will my stock go up?
Yeah. Any other ones?
Shares will cost.
Yeah, what else?
Will the stock go down?
See, right. Am I going to lose upside? What is Apple going to be worried about?
Will they get downside?
Well, are they going to get downside? Oh my gosh, am I going to sell this for too little? Right. Those are the additional asset-based concerns. That's how you know you're trading an asset rather than a currency. Currencies are only about the things that you're trading. Assets are about, am I losing because of the thing I'm using to pay? The thing I'm using to pay. Okay. So, Bitcoin is just about simple value transfer. I'm moving 5 Bitcoin from wallet A to wallet B. That's all it does, right? They're trying and have been trying to do a lot more with the Bitcoin blockchain. It's not designed to do that. This is what it's designed to do. Move Bitcoin from wallet A to wallet B, B to C, C to A, whatever they want to do. And it can be cut into a bunch of different parts called sats. It can be cut into like a trillion different parts. But all it's designed to do is just be sliced up and moved from one wallet to another. Okay. It's the largest asset in crypto, right? It's huge. But look at it compared to the market cap of gold and the market cap of Apple stock, right? So people think so many people hold Bitcoin. Not many people hold Bitcoin. It is still very early in Bitcoin, right? We're still extremely early. Not many people hold Bitcoin. Yeah.
Wait, so how much has been minted so far?
Oh, God. What are we at? 18 million, I think?
Wait, so isn't that pretty late?
No, it's not, because we actually have more time, but the problem that we have right now is that the wallets that are holding it, right, aren't letting it go. They're hoarding. So
the people that threw away their laptops or whatever.
Yeah, those stupid people.
Yeah.
Man.
So what happens when you hit 21 million?
Then it's done minting, but then the value of all of those assets goes up in theory, right? Because there's no more. This is the scarcity principle. I want to talk a minute about the scarcity principle. A lot of blockchain coins work on this principle, which is where if I only have a limited amount, it is de facto valuable. I only have 21 million. Therefore, every Bitcoin is more valuable. Yeah?
Does Ethereum, correct me if I'm wrong, but Ethereum doesn't have that limit, right?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. There is some limit, but we don't know it. It's elastic. So, so for let's just a minute on scarcity.
Mm-hmm. My apologies.
No, it's okay. There's we call this like a demand plateau, because so I like to talk about the dog poop example. If there are only 21 million pieces of dog poop in the world, that doesn't make any individual piece of dog poop more valuable, right? Because nobody wants the dog poop. That's the problem, right? So the value of scarcity is only as much as there's demand, right? Things that are scarce are only more valuable because they're scarce if people want them. If people don't want them, then the scarcity is irrelevant. We're happy there's only 21 million. We're sad for the dogs that apparently can no longer poop, but it doesn't make any piece of poop more valuable. So we have to remember that scarcity is only important when there's demand. You still have to maintain some form of demand. Okay. So what happened after this? Smart contracts. Have you guys heard of smart contracts?
I've not heard of smart.
Smart contracts are neither smart nor contracts. So
That's kind of false advertising.
there's a lot of oxymoronic content in blockchain. You will get used to it. Okay, so basically a bunch of devs in Bitcoin thought this is pretty cool what we're doing, but what it is incomplete. What I'd love to be able to do is more than just pass Bitcoin from one wallet to another. I'd really love to be able to do something like a vending machine. Ask it to do something where like it gives you, you say, I want that bag of chips. You put money in, it gives you the chips. That little coil like uncoils, it gives you the chips, and then the coil stops and resets for the next one, right? That's the concept behind Ethereum, vending machine. That's the concept behind most of the most useful blockchains, right? One second. So this is what a smart contract does. At its core, am I now long on this? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm chilling. We can keep going.
All right.
If you need to go, you can.
Oh, Dennis, you can go.
Yeah, you're stuck.
Thank you so much for those of you who stayed.
Oh, sure. What?
Bye. But I'm usually here for another hour.
Oh, yeah? Okay. This won't take an hour, so it's just,
As long
it's like,
as
there's
you're
like,
willing.
yeah, and it's like 6 more slides, but I was just like, well, just go until it gets done.
Oh,
That's what
thank
I-
you. Thank you.
Okay, so the whole concept on smart contracts is you start an action, and the action starts on, remember, like that coin, that native currency, or something called an oracle, which is outside data that I can explain in a minute. So either outside data comes in or a coin initiates a smart contract. And then it does the action, it delivers the chips, it resets, right? It stops after one set of chips, it resets. That's super complicated. That's really hard for any machine to do without any human interference. It requires a Turing complete system, and Bitcoin blockchain is not Turing complete. But the rest of these systems are all Turing complete. And that is because of the need for a smart contract. Go ahead.
Wait, sorry. So was the vending machine like an analogy, or the vending machine does this?
No, the vending machine's an analogy. It's literally what they were thinking of when they started it.
Okay, and then like this, so this smart contract that's used for Ethereum, basically it does the blockchain thing, but it just resets every time it transacts.
Yeah, so instead of just transferring Ethereum from person to person, you can program it to do things. For example, let's say you and I make a bet, right? We're going to say this year, it's been very warm. We have an argument, right? This year's been so hot. It hasn't been that hot. Okay, so we say February 1st of next year, I think it's going to be over 80 degrees. And you say, that's stupid. It's still going to be cold, right? So this is what we do. We basically create a smart contract in Ethereum with our bet. We have 2 wallets. I'm wallet A and you're wallet B. And we create a contract that says, on February 1st, send out an oracle, right? An oracle is basically a piece of data that's going to an outside source, outside the blockchain, to go look for some information and bring it back. And when it brings it back, it will either trigger an action or fail to trigger an action. So what it does, it goes, we have a wallet C. We both say that the bet is for 1 ETH, right? So each of us contribute half an ETH into this, and we put it in wallet C. We put in our smart contract, take an oracle, put it on February 1st, check the temperature from the Weather Channel. If the temperature is 80 degrees or lower, transfer 1 ETH from wallet C to wallet B. If the temperature is above 80 degrees, which means 80.1 or above, right? Transfer 1 ETH from wallet C to wallet A. So, and then done. So then we just let it sit. On February 1st, we see the results. Who won? We don't do anything afterwards. There's no human interference. This is actually a really important concept that allows people to set the conditions for things without being able to interfere with them afterwards. It's like having an automatic escrow, or being able to say, you will have an automatic distribution and I can't interfere with that distribution. So if I say, okay, I'm going to I have a song and I'm going to give you a piece of my copyright on it. Whenever that song plays and I get paid, if you hold the interest on the copyright on the blockchain, then you automatically get payment. I cannot intervene. It prevents intervention in action. Does that make sense?
So basically, like what you're saying is like if these conditions are met, then this transaction occurs.
Yep, that's it.
And then why would that be different from the other one? Because the other one is just like for Bitcoin, isn't that just like if it matches up and gets the vote, then the transaction occurs, right?
No, with blockchain, there's no vote, right? It's hashing action, but for that, it's not if it's not. There's no programming. It's basically okay. I want to sell you a sofa. It's real time, right? I'm going to sell my sofa to you, and you're going to give me half an ETH. We do it, and that's it. We can't program events. We can't.
This one has a lag.
This one, yeah, I can program things in. I can put in eventualities. I can put all sorts of things in there that you couldn't have in the real-time Bitcoin blockchain, right? You can't, that's basically just, I'm going to pay you, I will pay you, you will pay that person, you will pay that person. That's all it is, right? For value that's exchanged generally off-chain. This is essentially keeping the transactions totally on-chain. So you can see what was exchanged or what the transactions were completely on-chain, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah.
I was gonna ask, so currently, so like for example, Bitcoin doesn't have this like vending machine system, so anything that kind of replicates that, like on the dark web when you try to like buy something with like Bitcoin, it gives you automatically, it's like you're susceptible to fraud. So
Yeah, I mean, what you're doing basically when you're trying to buy, I mean, you're basically buying something. If you want to buy something on the blockchain, right, there's not a store of Bitcoin, like there's not a store of stuff on the Bitcoin blockchain, right? There's basically like just Bitcoin. So essentially, all you can do, if someone says, I'm going to sell you something for X Bitcoin, you can give them the Bitcoin, but you still have to trust that they're going to sell you whatever it is. With this system, you don't have to do that, right? They put something that's tokenized in an escrowed account. You put money or the reverse, right, into an escrowed account, and you set up a smart contract, and it's automatically done. No interference. You must exchange assets, right? Just if that makes, yeah.
yeah, and so this would be just like the vending machine would be more for kind of like their own store. It's like this system would be more for like the actual store. You get it, like it's guaranteed to be safe. So like an online space like Meta is trying to develop or something, if they had used Bitcoin for that, or I mean some other coin, you could just buy it and get it automatically safely without.
Right, and that's why when we talk about tokenizing assets, this is why. Because the assets that are tokenized, if they're tokenized properly, right, then you have that representation of both the value of the asset and the asset itself are exchanged on chain. So in order for the transaction to close, in order for you to lose money, you have to gain the asset. If you don't gain the asset, the transaction won't close. That's why this is actually really valuable. It allows everything to be tokenized, which means you must get the thing you're buying in order for you to give up your asset, in order for you to give up your money.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And from there we end up with all these different chains. and new methods of consensus. So from proof of stake, we go like proof of work, proof of reputation, history, time and space, all sorts of different things. What are wallets? Wallets do two main things. I told you that transactions are all keyed to wallets. Wallets are two things. They're like ISPs. They are doorways to the blockchain. All assets live on blockchains at all times. They don't leave the blockchain. People think that stuff is in a wallet. All the wallet is the doorway to the blockchain, and it's a calculator. Every time you open it, it calculates the current value of all the assets tagged to that wallet. That's what the wallet is. It's just listing the current value of the assets tagged to that wallet. The assets don't live inside there. Just this calculator and the tag for the assets, right? You can't access those assets without the tag, which is called a private key. NFTs, just very quickly, a lot of people don't understand what NFTs are. They're not art, right? They're not anything specifically. What they are is a representation of ownership plus a digital right transfer, right? So it's a digital representation of ownership. It can be actual digital owners, like something that's digital. It could be like, art, code, spoken word, some IP, intellectual property, like a patent or something. Or it could be a digital representation, which would be like a digital deed to land, or a digital provenance to art, or something like that. It can be anything. And then it's just a tag showing all the rights holders to that particular object, to that particular thing. So if it's a deed, then you can basically sell or lease anything less and up to what you own. So if I own an apartment, I could lease or sublease my apartment on chain, and you could see everybody who rents that apartment. If I have art, I can give a private right of a private license to somebody. I could give commercial license to somebody. I can tell if you say you were allowed to put that piece of art that you bought in a commercial, I can check and see if you had that right to put it in a commercial and make money off of it. If you didn't have it, then you owe me a lot more money, right? So it's basically tracking ownership of things. That's what it does. It's better than going to like a title office. That's why ownership is another big issue here. It's basically tracking assets. The issues are essentially, big issues in blockchain are lack of business and financial knowledge, all the stuff that happens off chain. That is where fraud lies. And regulatory issues. It's not unregulated right now. It's non-compliant right now, which means people aren't following the rules. And this problem that we have of early IPOs, early initial public offerings, people offer tokens too early. We leak value. And that's something more extensive that I can talk about if anybody's interested. DeFi is, I mentioned briefly, finance without the bank. And that's just basically all those assets, all those NFTs. You can basically get financing for a house. You could finance your house with an NFT and DeFi. Let's say you have a house and you need money, right? And you have maybe you have kids, right? And you want to leave them some money, but you don't necessarily want to leave them the house. You could sell NFTs to your house and then say, okay, when I die, my kids are going to have some of the NFTs, and then these 5 people get the rest. And when I die, I have like a life estate in it. When I die, it goes onto the market, and everybody holding an NFT gets a share of the profits. So the kids get some, and everyone else gets some of whatever the market value is, right? But all of that money that you get for selling the NFTs, you get that. It's not a loan. You just keep it. It's not something you have to pay back. It's just at the end of it, then you sell, then you create a sale event. Anyway, there's a lot in here. There's so much in here. Yeah, go ahead.
So for the gamification thing, you know how it's like 12.5 Bitcoin? when you hit that
You're
20.
gonna mine, aren't you? You're gonna go out and go get a mining operation right now.
Oh,
aren't you?
no. I was just wondering, like,
I'm gonna get an
if,
ASIC. I'm gonna go spend it's a couple thousand.
if you hit that 21 mil, like, of Bitcoin, how is it gonna keep incentivizing people to do it? Because you're not gonna get the 12.5.
Very good question. Very good question.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. That is one of the issues. So I think it's set to, I want to say 2035 is when all the Bitcoin will be mined. I think 2035 or 2045. I can't remember which one. Right. So yeah, it halves every 4 years. So to incentivize people to maintain the chain, it's essentially it's likely going to be people, like most people are going to do it to maintain the value of the Bitcoin. That is the theory, is that people will continue maintaining that blockchain in order to maintain the value of the Bitcoin, because if they don't, that will deteriorate the value of their holdings. So so that is the theory. Will it actually happen that way? I don't know. Very likely what will happen is they'll start using ML and AI tools to automate. So, machine learning. So very likely that will happen well before all of it's mined. Anyone else? Okay, I'm done. I know that was so long, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We really appreciate it.
Yay. Oh, I'm glad.
This is great.
Hey, Dad.